Yo, what is up guys? Guido here, back again with another somewhat mini bike video. In this video, I'm gonna show you guys how to get a motor running that currently isn't running. Now, I've already talked with the owner. The reason why this one isn't running is this was in the back of a truck and it tipped over. And I'm basically gonna show you guys how to evaluate that and how to get something like this running. Now, this is a Honda GX90. A lot of people put these motors on mini bikes, and it's pretty much designed the exact same way as a mini bike motor would be, except it has a pressure washer connection on here. So with this, I'm gonna have to attach a water system before I start this thing. Obviously, you wanna have water flowing through it before you start something like this, because it'll wear out the pump system. But if this is just a regular mini bike motor and you don't have this, the same thing is gonna apply. So the first thing that I'm gonna do, the customer already said this ran perfect before, it just tipped over in the back of a truck and now it won't start. So the first thing I'm gonna look at is you're just gonna undo this top cap on this airbox cover here. I'm gonna take this off. The first thing I'm gonna look at and see is if oil leaked into the carburetor and got in the air filter. So looks somewhat clean under there. There's another little nut here you're just gonna undo. And take this air filter off. Now, it might look somewhat all right or somewhat clean right here, but if you look a little bit right there, there's some oil residue. I'm gonna take this off and you can see that's exactly what happened. You can see there's oil residue there. There shouldn't be any oil residue. There's a little bit on here. The filter doesn't look too bad. I think I'm gonna just try to reuse this. It doesn't look too bad. And it doesn't really look like any oil's in there, but there's most definitely oil in the carburetor, so we're gonna have to clean that out. So the first thing, I'm just gonna wipe this thing down and clean it. Okay, so you can see the oil residue that's here. I'm just gonna clean this thing up. It's right around here and take this off. You can see it comes off and you can see all the oil, which obviously isn't very good. So you're just gonna wanna wipe up all this residue here and on here, make sure it's clean. And now on this specific one, there's a little O-ring right there. I'm just gonna try to leave that on. I'm gonna take the overhead valve vent tube off right here. Just so I can then slide this off, and you can see how it's held on by a bolt there and then two nuts on the front right here, and then it should be able to just slide off. Now what I'm doing, I'm just gonna use a 10mm socket to take off those two nuts there and then this top bolt here. Okay. All right, and you can see that this is undone there and undone there. So what this will do is it'll just slide off. Make sure your gas is kind of in the middle so it'll slip over this thing right here, just like that. And you can see this thing is just completely filled with oil. Now, if you're trying to start this and your carburetor is choking on oil like that, obviously the motor isn't gonna start. So you can see this is all oily. Spray some carb clean and get the oil out of this thing. All right, and you can see all these parts that had a bunch of oil and stuff in it. Blasted it clean with some carb cleaner is what I'd recommend using. And you can see it's cleaner than what it was, and there shouldn't be really any oil residue in there now. Along with the gasket there, I just kind of wiped down. So this should be pretty much good to go back on once it's ready. You can see though, the main issue here is the carburetor, because you can see all that oil right there is no good. So now what has to happen is this carburetor needs to come off, possibly drain the bowl maybe. I'm gonna definitely shoot a lot of carb cleaner in there too to get that out. But then what I'm gonna do is undo the throttle linkage system here and maybe the fuel line, just so I can slide this off a little bit more. And then I'll probably take the spark plug out, clean that up real good, and then start it, let it just run for a good long time and bake some of the oil that's probably on the valves and stuff like that off. Because I mean, you really can't do much about that unless you're taking the whole entire head off. But yeah, that's what I'm gonna do right now, and undo the throttle linkage. All right, so now what I'm gonna do next, now that I got this throttle linkage off, it's pretty easy. Just slide the carb off a little bit and then just twist this and you should be able to just pop it up out of there. Obviously I'm not at home, so I'm working with what I've got here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna undo this gas line, and vice grips would probably be ideal for this, but I'm just gonna try to use this little clamp. It should work just fine to block off that gas so it'll stop running, and then go outside and shoot some carb clean all up in this thing, and probably drain out the bowl here just in case there's any residual oil or whatnot. You can see inside doesn't look too bad. Obviously, I mean, there's really not too much you could do if you want to take like the whole head off and blast it clean. You also don't want to like spray a bunch of stuff in there and hydrolock the motor either. But I'm gonna just try to clean out this carb, take the spark plug out, maybe see if it's very oily or whatnot, and then just try to get this thing going. So yeah, I'm just gonna undo this with some pliers here. I might just be able to do it with my hands right here. I might need pliers. And then slide that up. Once I pull that off, I'm gonna crimp it off with this. All right, and you can see I got the hose off there. A little bit of action with the screwdriver, kind of get it up under there and pry that hose off, and I have that on there so it's not leaking. Worked out perfect. Now what I'm gonna do, this whole thing will come off. Like I said, it doesn't look too bad in there. I'm gonna say that's probably good. I'm just gonna shoot this thing out with some carb clean and get it all nice and clean. Get that oil all out of there right there. All right, I got her looking all nice and clean on the inside. I'm also just gonna drop the bowl for shits and giggles and see if there's any just debris in there anyways, and spray that out as well. So check this out. You can see, even with just spraying the carburetor isn't good enough. You can see what is dripping out is just literally oil right there. So it's definitely necessary to do the float and drain the bowl, clean up all that, because you can just see oil's just running out of this thing, man. Now I wish I got this on video, but I didn't, because I was trying to get it over where it wouldn't leak everywhere in here, but this thing was like full of black oil. Yeah, that's why it's not wanting to start. So I dumped that out, I sprayed it out. That stuff's just stained in there. So this thing is 100% clean, all oil free, and yeah, should be good to put back together and get it going. All right, I'm gonna call it and say that this thing's all good. I'm gonna just line this back up, throw it back on. Now what you're gonna do is you just have to put your throttle assembly back in, just like there. All right, so you can see this thing is all on there, all reinstalled how it was. Now I'm just gonna get the gas line, put it back on there, put the clamp back on there, and then put the cover back on. All right, now this airbox cover is gonna go back on. You can see, just line it up with the holes there. Just like that, line it up with the holes there, and it should slide through. So you can see it'll just slide on just like that. Make sure it's tight on there, and then all for your choke and your run, and then also your on and off for the gases in there. And then now we're gonna put on the rest of the top stuff here. Before we do that, we're gonna slide on the overhead valve vent tube onto here. Now this basically just vents for the valves right there. Just like that. And then put your nuts on just like that loosely, and then put this one on loosely as well. Just so everything's all in line and stuff like that first before you really start tightening stuff down. Just like that. And then now you can go tighten them back down with your 10mm socket. All right, and then tighten those down. Make sure they're snug, not too tight, but also not too loose, along with that one. Now, once that's all back together, we're just gonna get our part here. You can see for the airbox, it just slides on there just like that, and then that little notch there will line up with that little notch there. Just like that. And then put your air filter back on. Now this air filter doesn't really look like it has any oil in it. It's kind of hard to tell. I'm gonna say it's good. If it doesn't start, it's probably because of the air filter. But we're just gonna try it like this anyways. And then just go and put your nut back on. Usually what I'd do is I would just recommend getting a new air filter, but they don't wanna buy one. So we're just gonna hope that this one's all right and it's good enough to use. Make sure it's somewhat snug, just like that. And then your cover can go back on. There we go, just like that. All right, now this thing has gas in the tank. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over here. You can see the fuel switch on is that way. So we're gonna turn that all the way like that. Make sure it's all on. And then this is for choke, whether you wanna start it or you wanna run. Usually I think on these motors, this way is choke and then this way is run. So we're gonna just try it like that. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna attach my water source to this because it's a pressure washer motor. So you have to have the water source connected on there. So I'm just gonna attach my water source real quick and then see if this thing will start. You can see I got this thing running perfectly fine. I have the water hooked up to it right now just because that's the way this system works and you wanna have it lubricated. And you can see that's coming out perfect. It's running perfectly, no issues. Smoked a little bit on startup, but now it is good. I'm just gonna let this run and idle for a little while now so it can bake some of the oil that's stuck in this exhaust. It'll burn some of it off, but that's how you do it right there, guys. See, she's smoking quite a bit, especially when I was turning it up. I mean, the real way to get something like this 100% clean would be to take the head off and stuff like that, but just something in this situation here, you just gotta let her run. She was tipped over, so the exhaust and everything got filled with oil. So all you gotta do is just let her run, let her bake off that, that oil that's drenched in there. You can see the oil that's coming out right now from the exhaust right there. You can see it actually leaking out because it just got full of the oil and stuff. So the best way is just let her run. And that's what I'm doing. And you guys can see this thing starting, running perfectly fine. First pull, all it needed was that carb to be cleaned out. Now, if you guys want to watch some of my more mini bike videos I do on how to upgrade these motors and everything like that, go ahead and check me out. Anyways, that's how you do it, guys. I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure you guys comment, like, and subscribe. And peace.